I worked in a kitchen. Um, what kind of kitchen would that be? It was like for banquet halls. So, you have to peel a lot of potatoes at one time.
Like prep cook?
Well, I did more of the potato peeling. I did a lot of grunt work. I was a really young kid. I don't even know if I was old enough to legally work. So I think maybe I was 16, just turned of age. So I was I was just learning how to do that. But I don't, I don't, it never really took. I didn't really work in the food prep business. A cultist is an accomplished occultist is a person with a stack of accomplishments. And I think accomplishments come through struggle. And I think being a fry cook, for instance, or a landscaper, that's struggle every day. Every day you struggle. But there's also it's a very, you have to be the servant before you're served, let's say. So you sort of have to deal with customers and you have to manipulate them. You have to get paid. So I don't know. You have to be able to read people. I think the best are like hairdressers. Hairdressers are wonderful. Uh, I want to say con artists, but not con artists. But they have to read people. They have to be able to read a person and communicate to them in a way where they're going to keep them coming back and be able to get tips. Waitresses are the best, like the best. Waitresses are the best, and a fry cook. Yeah, I mean a fry cook at a diner. Living back in Chicago, there's nothing like going to a diner, late night diner. Boy, it's 2:30 in the morning now. I feel like I'm not even hungry. I feel like going to visit the fry cook at Belmont at the Belmont diner over there. 'Cause, boy, they really chat you up. But I don't know. There's something about that reading people, isn't there?
Yes, and I think that people like that seem to have the greatest ease of finding what others have in common with either them or how small our world is. I feel like people like that can find anything to talk about with anyone.
Oh yeah. Okay. You asked if I worked in the food industry. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. To bring that up, I was a bartender. Bartenders are great at reading. And that was a great job for sure. And I was given that job because I have a charming personality. The person said I was charming in a character. And that was something you had to talk like at that bar. This was a professional. This guy was a guy who made bars successful. And he wouldn't let his bartenders read magazines or sit, like he wouldn't let us serve coffee. He was real strict on the rules there. But you had to pay attention to your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a cool job. That was a really cool job. I really enjoyed being a bartender. And you definitely had to read people in the bartending business. You have to read people. You have to be able to cut people off. You have to be able to direct the crowd versus the crowd can't. You have to control the bar, which is all the people. What makes a bar alive is the people in it, and you're feeding them spirits. And so,
Ooh.
yeah, they all change. They all change from the person that walks in there to they get real. Things get real, and you have to control an entire bar. Maybe there's 50 people in there, so that's a heavy thing.
I was a bartender too. Um, Controlling the room on a daily is sort of a fulfilling job. However, I feel like the worst was New Year's and St. Patrick's Day and Halloween.
Oh yeah, well we had multiple. At our bar was a beer and shot joint. I don't know what kind of place you bartended at, but ours was a corner Chicago corner bar, neighborhood bar.
Mm-hmm.
And on New Year's Eve and all those amateur nights, right? They call them amateur nights.
Mm-hmm.
They were worse, and there was like four people working versus just one. So it was a whole different. That's a whole different. Yeah, those are worst. The worst.
What is amateur night?
When people that go out to drink every day or have a drink after work every day, they drink Monday through Friday. They go out every weekend to drink. They'll like get their paycheck on Friday and go out and spend it at the bars. Those are professional drinkers. And then there are amateur nights when, New Year's Eve, the people who drink once a year go out. They get
It's
drunk.
my birthday!
Right. They throw up. There's vomit everywhere. There's fights. There's amateur night, Valentine's Day, any of those weird holidays where people who don't drink professionally, let's say, or on the regular, that's what they call amateur night.
I think another very parallel job I've had is DJing, because you're sort of setting the mood of what's going on and you have to kind of read the crowd as well. Much like the spirits in the room, it reminds me, it always reminded me working in a bar, no matter what hat I wore, of the Gremlins movie, when all the gremlins are in the movie theater.
Yeah, bartending and working in where people are getting drunk is can be pretty dangerous. So you definitely have to watch what's going on.
I think even like the amount of reading and magic you have to use, it's very simple magic, but magic that wait staff has to use on a daily is amazing to me. And managing food service, I think people within that blue collar, they have to placate a lot of very difficult problems. And it's amazing the amount of work you have to do for so little sometimes.
What I found interesting in any of those businesses is like, even when I was working younger, peeling potatoes at that restaurant, people really show themselves when they expect service. When they're
Yes.
when they're demanding of things, they show themselves. And in a bar, you're able to see people, especially as a bartender, you're able to see people in their truest form. When they get drunk, they let themselves go. They let their hair down. I remember watching, and this was just really devastating to me to see as a romantic, and it's outside of my character, no matter drunk or not. But I remember seeing multiple times people come in as couples, and let's say one would leave and there'd be three there, and the best friend, the guy would leave or the girl would leave, and the best friend would start making out with the other person's face. And it was just like, I did not see that was funny. I thought it was just absolutely disgusting to me. I found those people to be a reprehensible character. And as I remember, they were awful tippers. They were very narcissistic people. They showed themselves, just like in the restaurant when I was a young man. People would be there were certain people that were very demanding, and no matter how much you gave them, they expected more from you, more. And I didn't like those people either. I'd never spit in their food, but when I hear stories of that stuff, I could say, well, I wonder if they're spitting in the right character's food versus everyone's food. Just I hope they're getting that fucking asshole.
In the position that someone's serving you food or providing you customer service, sometimes the customer not only abuses the customer's always right, but it's a very automatic and obvious power dynamic going on. It is inevitable that the person providing service has to provide service. And I think some people exploit that. And I think that people who work in those environments are very strong people in terms of dealing with very difficult people.
So, yeah, that's true. But who holds the power? The person that's demanding and paying, or the person that could put Windex in your drink and make you shit your pants? Actually, the person that could poison your food is holding absolutely the power. And so a lot of people, when you're serving them food, most people, smarter people get that. Smarter people get like, this person's serving me food, yo. Like, don't fucking piss them off. They'll end up shitting on it or something. And then there's the ignorant person that has revealed themselves to be an ignorant fool. I mean, a total fool. I mean, I don't see it being two ways in power at all. Just, I guess you're right. In different levels, when you're paying the bills, there's a power there. But boy, you're really trusting the person that's going behind the curtain to give you food when you're mean to them. I don't know. That's a bold thing to do in a restaurant.
This podcast is based around the history and experiences of the infamous Shane Bugbee, recollected and retold by Shane Bugbee himself. Who is Shane? Well, you're about to find out. I'm your host, Nannerl, and this is Speak of the Devil.
It's strange thinking about LaVey being a fry cook, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I imagine him with his curly hair wearing a hairnet.
Oh my goodness, I don't even think of him with that hair ever. So I think of him as just like LaVey, but just like this guy, like, hey, what do you need, Joe? Having met him, he was a real cool guy. He was like a good guy. Or no, what is that? Good fellow. Like they have that term in that movie or something like that, but he was just like that guy. Really decent dude. So I could see him, and that's where he has the salad dressing test. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, the blue cheese thing.
The Thousand Island, yeah, it tests you like based on the dressings. He came up with this whole formula based on what you put on your salad, what kind of personality you were. And I thought that was so funny and ingenious. If you're working at a short order cook or at a diner, man, I want to go to a diner right now and get some fucking fried steak or whatever. But I could just see this guy like, this monotonous job of putting down 100 salads a day or 50 salads a day and looking at this person going, oh, you're a jock sniffing motherfucker. You like that blue cheese, huh? Or Thousand Islands are always the dominant person or the French dressing.
Do you remember all of or most of those codes?
Sure. I well, not by the letter of the law, let's say, but
okay.
I know blue cheese means you're light in the loafers, maybe you like dick.
Okay.
Thousand Islands French are a dominant. Ranch is submissive. He also took vanilla ice cream as submissive. Anything with nuts in it, I believe he took as submissive because it got in the way of the flavor. It got in the way, which I don't agree. I'm like, I don't agree with that. I use Thousand Island dressing.
What about those Italian dressing?
I think that was a dominant.
Okay.
But I use like Thousand Island dressing, Italian dressing. I love nuts on my vanilla ice cream. I love hot, but I also like chocolate ice cream, and I like blue cheese dressing once in a while. So it's all over the place. I think he had fun with that, is what I'm saying.
Right. You should never take this seriously. This is sort of like any other, it reminds me of when you're a kid and there's the whole thing about getting your right ear pierced meant you were gay or whatever, like 25, 30 years ago. It's sort of like one of those things, or, oh, you picked that, so that means this is that. So it's just fun. It's just in fun.
But you think maybe it's one of these like layers type of thing, like maybe it's like not the nuances of a person that takes you so long to get to know someone. Do you ever know a person? One of those things where like you got a half hour to spend with this guy and he drops down a Thousand Island. Well, you don't want to get in an argument with him about politics because he might be he's probably a dominant person. Maybe that's where that's always what I figured he came up with. It was like, that guy's probably a dominant person with the Thousand Island dressings. He's talking about this politics. I'm not going to get into it with him because he's going to want to be dominant and I don't want to upset him. I want him to have a nice meal. So I'm just going to leave it alive. versus the person with the ranch dressing. Maybe you could push it a little bit, and maybe you're like, yeah, well, that person wants to be pushed around a little bit, and that's how I'll get my tip. They'll respect me that way.
I was not surprised when you said about the ranch dressing of being a submissive person. I was thinking ranch dressing would make you sort of a predictable person, sort of in the same way that a pumpkin spice latte is seen now. Maybe, or kind of like, I'm trying to think of another sort of way we look at people. Maybe kind of like cars also. You know, we see the truck as you have a small dick. We see the sports car as midlife crisis or working on your third or fourth wife. All these different things about practicality in the car means that you're way too safe or predictable of a person. I feel like it's sort of like that. By the way, I'm a crotch sniffer. I love blue cheese. Fuck you all. However, I don't know if I like blue cheese dressing. I like the blue cheese, but I would rather just put olive oil and salt on my salad.
Oh, you don't use any vinegar?
Mm-mm.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I like olive oil. As I get older, my taste change. I like olive oil and vinegar, salt and pepper. And if I like blue cheese once in a while. It'll be like once a year I'll feel like having some, and it's usually on a burger. I like to stuff a burger with it, and have blue cheese. Oh, you know what I really like is cheddar cheese and feta on an omelet, like stuffed in an omelet.
That
like
sounds
stuffed
good.
Full of cheddar cheese and feta, and the feta's got to melt though. You can't have this chunks of cold feta in there. It's got to be melty with the cheddar. Oh man, those combined.
I feel like people who want cold feta on hot food are the same people who only put ketchup on their hot dog, but not mustard.
Oh, that's gross.
I think of children when I think of ketchup on hot dog.
Chicago, you will get hurt with ketchup on a hot dog.
What is an acceptable Chicago dog?
Oh, well, basically mustard, onions, relish. They also have one, they drag it through the garden, they say, which is a lot of people, tourists will see it, which has lettuce and tomatoes and celery salt and all this bullshit. But Chicagoans eat a hot dog with mustard, onions, relish, sport peppers, and stuffed with, and then they put the fries right on there and wrap it up.
Oh, that sounds good. The fries are in the dog.
Right on top of the dog. You pull them off, but they're all in one big wad of fucking starch and a little tube of meat there.
I'm someone who stuffs their French fries in their hamburger, so I would probably eat them right on the dog. I wonder what LaVey would think of that.
Yeah, right. I wonder if it's like the nuts getting in the way of the ice cream flavor. But no, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was about to say, ketchup is sometimes like that, just generally as a sauce. It's people often, I think, who have no opinions of their own, put way too much sauce on their food.
Oh, that's interesting. I use a sauce on my food. Like a lot of times, if I go to get a cheap steak, I'll use a steak sauce. Because it's a cheap steak.
Cheap steak. I think that's okay.
I like barbecue chicken, but it's ribs. I like dry rub, but I like a barbecue rib. I don't know. But I don't know about reading people. I wonder who else in the blue collar. Cops have to read people. That's blue collar. Man, they got to read people fucking quick. I wonder what they do. I wonder what cops do. Like, do they read you by your forehead? Like, is it a total eugenics type might is right thing? Like, oh, that motherfucker's short, so he's going to be like having Napoleon complex. Like, oh, he's short. He's going to be angry because he's short and fat and bald. Or
I think bouncers of clubs and bars read people that way.
See, well, a cop would have to read people physically, too, a lot of times because they're going to get physical. Like, they're there to get physical.
Okay.
So I could see, cops, bouncers. See, you got to read the physical. You got to look them over, the size of the person. Mm-hmm. Boy, Yeah, I guess so. I guess as a bartender, I've never had to do that. I guess sometimes, but not much.
I feel like I could definitely guess who wasn't going to tip me well. And it had nothing to do with race. It was definitely the amateur night was the worst tippers.
Oh yeah. I I always got that wrong. I got to be honest. I always looked at people almost like a class thing. I saw rich people and I thought they'd tip great, and I was always surprised when they didn't. I was always like, "Wow, that person's got a lot of money, or that person has cologne on," or because I come from a lower class life, and so I was always surprised when rich people didn't tip well.
I didn't know that rich people didn't tip well until more recently. Actually, this goes along with beauticians and barbers, is anyone who works in cosmetology industry, I think has to read people as well. Yeah.
Well, see, what I'm saying is when I'm making those mistakes, I think that helps you figure out you have to read deeper than just what the guy's shoes or the woman's blouse. You have to read into the person, not the class of person they are, because quite often a poor person, I disregard them when I was younger as a bartender. Like, they're never going to tip me, and I'd get a great tip from them. Or the rich person, I'm like, I'm going to get a great tip from them, so I'm overly serving them and I get a shitty tip. So I think it's like you have to that's where you work on this occult muscle, where you have to look in their eyes. You have to feel it more. You have to get a gut feeling. There's that looking in someone's eyes and feeling it more than reading their shoes. Like, how many people go clubbing and they have the $300 shoes or $200 pairs of jeans, but they're broken. They're living at their mom's house. They have a nice car. They have all this stuff to go out and perform visually quickly to get laid or to be accepted in that clique. But they don't. Their life does not ring true to the shoes they have. If that makes sense.
Yes.
They're driving the Lyft or the Uber, but they look like they're a lawyer. Their outfit like a lawyer. When they go out, when they step out, they have a couple nice pairs of jeans, a couple nice shoes. And so I think that when you're a successful bartender, I think you have to start reading people a little better. I don't know. I think that's how it goes. At least that's how it went for me. I had to start reading people a little better. I had to start going, wow, look at me. I can't believe that guy gave me a $20 tip. I couldn't even believe he had $20 in his pocket. So then I really had to start reading beyond that, feeling it. And then maybe comes to an idea that there's this intimacy with that exchange. Even in the cult stuff, there's an intimacy in it, where you feel this person deserves your time or deserves your knowledge because you're feeling them. And you're letting off vibes, or you're letting off pheromones, let's say. You're letting off a scent to attract a mate or attract a tip or attract something. So you start letting off those chemical scents even by being kind or looking at a person kind. And maybe that's where some of that tricks come in.
I think so. I think that there's a little bit of strategy also involved in sort of like the idea of looking out for number one. You definitely have to be a few moves ahead of others in order to survive in those environments that you have to read others.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. For me, it's like, do I get tricked by the shoes, or do I trick someone naturally? Do I let off? Do I lay down? Do I, the submissive dog gets the bone?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know when to let that, not just put on a smile of, yeah, hi, I'm happy and nice and I'll give you what you want, buddy, when you're really not. You're angry to be there. You're angry that you're serving this short, fat man that's below you in every which way, but he has the money and you're working. So you have to trick yourself maybe. You have to go, there's those nuances, and they're this unspoken, it's the chemical reaction between people. And if you're not able to let off your pheromones at the right time, you're probably not going to get that tip or survive that date if you're a sex worker, let's say.
Mm.
You have to be able to let off the scent. You have to be able to let off the warmth. You have to be able to turn your warmth on and off. And that's part of magic. That's a deep magic, to be able to be warm and cold at will, not just based on who you're actually turned on by, but turning yourself on.
Mm-hmm.
And then by doing that, turning others on to you.
This went actually a different direction than I anticipated it, but when you were mentioning about having this, to perform for this, whoever it is, to get a tip, it kind of reminded me of the good guy badge a little bit from The Devil's Notebook.
Well, good guy badge, I think for me, my interpretation of that is someone who puts on someone who tells you, I'm a good guy. I'm talking about actually turning your body temperature on to be hot or cold.
Okay.
I'm talking about actually doing that versus I'm a priest. You can trust me. I'm a cop. You can trust me. Those are those good guy badges. They tell you up front, no, you can trust me. I'm a good guy. You can trust me. I'm selling you this car. Trust me on this. And I think those are the good guy badge is like a visceral thing. It's like a promise. It's like, something that's spoken. It's not something that's felt. For me, manipulating people for a tip or manipulating my way through a job as a bartender is definitely not just smiling at the person going, hey, how are you? You could tell a phony a mile away. It's how can you become real in a situation that you don't really want to be there? You're at a job. So how can you turn yourself on? How can you be excited about being there? A lot of bartenders I know would use cocaine, or they would actually drink in the bar situation. They'd get drunk with the people and turn themselves on. I didn't drink. I just came out of being an alcoholic when I started bartending, so I didn't drink at all. But it was about, how can I turn my heat on? How can I make myself attractive to everyone or a majority of people in there? And that's not saying that I'm a good person and you can trust me. That's just getting you to warm up to me. I'm not sure about that being a good guy person. I'm not promising anything. I'm not, that's at least how I see it.
Do you think that it's a survival mechanism?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why sex workers would be the best at this stuff. They go into a situation they're not in a bar. They're in a fucking bedroom. They're in a closed door situation where someone's standing in front of the door. They're not going to be able to get through that person. That person's going to go through them. They have to turn their heat on. They have to make the person believe. So there's a lot of there's more than just that, but there's acting that's going on there. There's the tactile touch of a hand on the other person to calm them down. There's reading that person and going, oh, you don't like that, but you have to be watching their eyes. I've worked in that business on all ends of that business. And so that's a heavy load. And that's why there's such a high burnout rate with sex workers and stuff like that. Cause it's like a nuclear energy, right? We're creating this, we're spinning inside, we're turning our heat on. And I think we burn out. I shouldn't, but there's a heavy burnout rate with that. Or you have to do drugs, do some cocaine or, drink, mostly cocaine in that business, to get yourself, to trick yourself into feeling warmed for another person or excited.
I think sometimes when you're in the environment of survival for a long time, besides the burnout, you start. It's almost like, sort of like life imitating art, sort of thing, but rather with work. Your work and your life start to interlope together because you have no choice but for it to be your life. I think that kind of exists also for other industries besides sex work, but especially with sex work, unfortunately. I think with bartending and with nightlife, a lot of times this falls into it too, because sometimes to have a little more, pep, a little more motivation for work, you may wish to drink or take drugs, just like how sex work would be. And I think that your social circles also end up being sort of the same as with work as well.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a heavy thought. I was just thinking about it, like how few survive those industries. Like most of the old bartenders that I know are they're bitter. They quit the business and they're bitter. Some work it the whole life and they love it. They love their gig. They love the whole thing. It just goes. But there's a high burnout rate there, and with sex workers, huge burnout rate. But the few who make it out alive, man, they're motherfuckers. They can manipulate anyone at any time. They get what they want. They get through life and they get what they want. They have a whole town. They'll have half the town. They'll have 10 apartment buildings. They can't be. You cannot take them. You cannot rip them off. I've worked with plenty, like worked in the porn industry. So the few women who made it out, they're just unfuckable. And I mean that, like you can't rip them off. I mean you can't rip them off. No pun intended. I didn't mean to say unfuckable, but you cannot rip them off. You cannot take them for anything. They're gonna take you. No matter who you are or what you think, they're gonna take you. Because they're masters, they're witches, or they're the highest you get in that in turning themselves on and off at will. They can turn themselves cold and put an ice storm in a room. Like you'll feel their pain, you'll feel them pissed off. You'd be like, "Holy shit, I'm afraid," or "Wow, this is I'm turned on." They'll turn on a room and they'll turn it off at will. Powerful people.
Do you think working in blue-collar work also, people acquire life skills and other skills within their job indirectly that they may not have a degree for, but they're definitely well qualified for a lot of aspects of life?
Oh yeah, I think struggle in and of itself, like struggling, there's an accomplishment,
Mm-hmm.
and that accomplishment is power. That's that's part of your building blocks of individual power and will. When you manifest your will every day as a plumber, you have to dig a ditch each day and you're just broken at the end of the day. You wake up and you feel accomplishment. You feel and you feel your muscles torn and building. You feel muscles building. Maybe it's a lawyer and you feel mind muscles building, but that accomplishment is a big part of occult work, I think, whatever that accomplishment is, whether it's artists master their instrument, master their sculpting, they master it through every day. They struggle to perform. And a lot of times, a lot of the artists I know, when it's no longer a struggle, they pick up another instrument or they start another medium they'll start painting. They were a sculptor, now they're painting, or they're doing something else. So I think that struggle and those accomplishments become addictive for a reason. That's how we're evolving as an individual. That's how we're finding our power, is through that struggle. That's why we would switch those things off. I think.
Do you think your struggles and accomplishments when you worked in blue collar have helped you as an artist?
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I was a plumber, it helped me with the work discipline. temperament, my own and others, reading temperament. Not, like in plumbing, a lot of times when you mess up, you might get a wrench thrown at your head.
Oh.
No joke. I mean, they throw tools around. There's fist fights on the job. It's a really hard building, things like that, construction, digging ditches, water heater could blow up if you make a mistake. So you're dealing with tools that could kill you. You could electrocute yourself with, standing in a puddle of water. So it's just like it's a really heavy job. They don't get paid enough. So yeah, that's helped me. Oh yeah. And did you ask if it helped me with the cult work?
I just meant overall as an artist.
But that might be in my character too. Just, I don't know if everyone can be who and what we are, what we try to be. Some people are naturals and they just fall into something and they're just like, I'm happy right here. It doesn't take me a lot of work to be this person, a plumber. And I see a lot of those people as the people who watch sports and aren't the kind of people that I hang out with. I don't see them as intellectuals. I think intellectuals struggle. I think great artists struggle all the time. Intellectuals are always struggling to know more, understand more. They're always questioning themselves. A great boxer is always struggling to be better. So those are the kind of people I like. I don't, even if they have a natural talent like Eddie Van Halen, I would bet that Eddie Van Halen still struggles. He makes it look so easy, but I bet you when he's writing songs, even to this day, he struggles.
Mm-hmm.
You as an artist, do you still struggle when you're,
Oh, yeah. I think that sometimes it harkens back to hard work from blue-collar days, trying to survive. Sometimes it's just the memories of that. Sometimes it's just struggling, knowing that you climbed so high to get where you are, and you feel like when you've accomplished a lot, your stakes are higher and you can fall farther. So I think that I often struggle with the fact that I succeeded because I'm afraid of failing.
Oh, that's a great struggle. That is a heavy one. That's maybe the heaviest. Those are heavy because they're not real. There's something you put on yourself. It's not like digging a ditch. It's a real problem because I have a similar one, but it's not real. You have to get your mind to, you have to really, that's a cult. Like that's like, you have to get your, I don't know how to put that into words. That's why I say it's a cult. It's like, that's heavy. I feel you though on that one. That's the worst. Oh,
I never felt that way when I worked in food service or retail because why would you? You don't feel like if you fall, you just stand back up. You go back to work. And I think that it's a weird grass is greener on the other side in that standpoint.
Maybe there's like minor accomplishments like the food industry thing. We're talking about these little building blocks of accomplishments. And then there's these major accomplishments where you've climbed the mountain.
Yes.
And you don't need to roll down that mountain. You'll die. You'll fucking fall off a cliff and crash and die. And that's what we're talking. That's what you're talking about. How you're on this huge fucking peak, and you're not leaving that peak. You're not leaving this fucking peak without dying. Like, oh, I feel that. Oh God, you're right. So there's different levels of accomplishment. But all the same, it's like those building blocks of when you worked in the food industry. Maybe also like whenever I've worked there, it pushes me right back into my art because I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking sick of dealing with people. I've got to make this artwork work. I've got to make this work. How can I make this work? And the last thing I do is want to give another drink to these people. I fucking hate being around drunks.
I never felt like I needed to do more than the bare, like my job in blue collar jobs. I never felt any desire to be management or even like get any more out of it because it was work. And I think as an artist, I feel the exact opposite. I always want more.
There's that accomplishment, right? Accomplishment is addictive, and I think it's part of make that great magician or whatever we talk about here. It's definitely a quality that not many people have. A lot of people just fall into something, or they're like, well, I've got this gig. It pays the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy here. It's easy. I got enough money to get off on the weekend. I get 2 weeks off vacation, and that's all fine and dandy, for some people.
Yeah. Is this ASMR of stickers? What do you have in your hands there?
Oh, yeah, stickers.
Just because our listeners can't see what you're flipping through right there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm doing that.
They don't know if it's just packets of ranch dressing and you're just predictably shuffling through them from...
Hear it. You can hear it. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Yeah, I was flipping my stickers so I could smell the fresh print on them. I love the printed stuff.
So now part of ASMR via Speak of the Devil podcast, I give you a pad of paper being ruffled through. Thank you for listening to my ASMR. Did you have merch that you made when you were working as a plumber?
No. I was doing a zine. I was trying to make a zine just to put out words on the street so people would see me and hear me, like just to be seen. And politics have always driven a lot of my artwork. Mm-hmm. So merch is almost the exact opposite of that drive. Merch is something to survive. But no, I put a zine out, and on my breaks, I would get on the phone. I wouldn't even eat lunch. I would get on the phone and try to sell ads, try to find people to help, try to find places to distribute it. I would work on it. I would edit my words. Just struggle with that. And, I dropped out in junior high. So, and I've always been told I shouldn't be doing this stuff because I can't spell properly, or I can't, my stuff is not proper, but I still have the need to communicate nonetheless. So it's like, people a lot of times are confused by my words or how I communicate, but that doesn't stop me. I have the need to communicate so strongly. And in a big way, I have a need to communicate to the world, not just to a couple people here and there, but I have the need to communicate. That's natural to me. That's within my character. That's something I can't stop doing no matter what. So I'll always do it. I learned along the way. Someone had told me that just writing prose, no one can, because I was edited once and I was really angry about it. And someone said, just write in prose. They can't edit you that way. And so I write in prose, and I just put out this book, The Joy of Satanism. Mm-hmm. And someone had said, oh, it's a book of poetry. And I said, oh, well, if you see it that way, that's how you see it. But I write that way because I can't write. And that's the way I can write. That's the way I can communicate. Because my communication is abstract, or it's confusing for some people. So that's fine with me. I think in terms of the occult world, not the librarian world, not the collegiate world, but as far as occult goes, I said, well, put it in terms of occult. It's sort of confusing. It's hard to read. There's a question mark there, and I think that is perfect within. There's hidden meaning in what I'm writing, and so it seems to be perfect for the world I've entered many years ago.
We've come up to our time here for today's episode, but I did want to ask you, where can our readers find Joy of Satan?
Oh, ShaneBugby.com. It's probably the easiest place to find it.
And is this a physical copy of a book, or is this also ebook?
You know what? I'm going to make it an ebook. It'll be out by the time you hear this. It should be on Amazon. I'm gonna make it an ebook, but right now, at the moment, I'm just selling physical copies. It's such a beautiful pink cover.
So when you get your copy, make sure to submit to us to speakofthedevilpod@gmail.com your great ASMR recordings of you flipping through the pages so we can hear.
What is ASMR? What does that mean?
I can't recall off the top of my head what it stands for, but it's, from what I understand, it's recordings where people make noises and these sensual sounds that make you feel something. A lot of times it's to relax. And so a lot of times they have very gentle voices like this.
Right. Okay, I've heard of this before. Okay, I thought that's what it might be. Okay. All right. I love that.
I do too. And I can't wait to hear listeners enjoy their brand new books and flip through the pages just like this.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and tune into our next episode wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. You can find us at Speak of the Devil Pod on Twitter and contact us at speakofthedevilpod@gmail.com. For Shane's artwork or to support his endeavors, please visit ShaneBugby.com or find him on Twitter at ShaneBugby. I've been Nannerl. Have a good one.
Oh, and ShaneIsTheDevil.com.